Hello, I wanted to make this video for those of you that are going to Monterey, and I understand some of you are going for the first time, so there's a lot of questions that you may have. And what I don't want is for anyone to be discouraged in going because maybe they don't know how to ask the question, don't know what question to ask. So I'm going to try to do this in a way where the least time possible, but these are the 8 points I'm going to talk about for the Monterey ride. The first one is I'm going to talk about the date and the time and the meeting place. The second thing I'm going to talk about is the history of this ride, why it's important to the Soul Riders. Number 3 is the Strava app. Number 4 is I want to explain about the fact that there's 2 different starting points. Then after that, I'm going to explain about the 20-mile ride and I'll break it down more. Then I'm going to explain the 10-mile ride and break it down. And then things that I think you should do to train before going, just very simple things. And the last is the accommodations. So those are the things I'm going to talk about, 8 different points. So the first one is it's in Monterey, California, June 29th. It's a Saturday morning at noon. And why do we start so late? Because a lot of the people don't stay the night, and it's a long drive from the Central Valley. It's about a 2.5-hour drive. So we do it at noon to give people a chance to get there. So it's June 29th, Saturday, noon. This is the only ride we do so far that starts that late. And it's simply because we want to give people the chance to get there. Number 2, the second point, is the history of the ride. This is a ride, a trail that I found when I began to cycle by myself and my son David. And we rode this trail. And this is something that when the Soul Riders began, this is one of the first trails that I had ever ridden on. So every year, every June, we do this ride every single June. It's a really fun time because not only is it a ride, but it's a time to hang out, fellowship. Because the ride, the midpoint of the ride, which I'll explain, ends at Cannery Row. If you don't know what Cannery Row, it's like Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco or Pier 39, but yet outside of a big city. It's in a small town of Monterey. It's really nice. It's a coastal small town, and there's a lot of nice shops and galleries and restaurants and the beach. There's different things to see there. So it's a beautiful ride. And if you are going to be introduced to riding or be introduced with us Soul Riders, this is the ride to do it on. This is probably the ride with the most fun outside of the riding. So now I want to explain about the 2 starting points. There's 2 starting points for the reason of we don't want to discourage anyone that has never ridden a long ride or doesn't know how to ride on trails that have hills, or if you're going with your family and children. So we have 2 starting points. One of the starting points begins 10 miles away from Cannery Row, and the second starting point starts at 5 miles away from Cannery Row. The people that are doing the 10 miles away, it's the same trail. So what happens is those of us that are doing the 10 miles away, we start a little early, maybe 45 minutes earlier, and we meet up at the second starting point with the group that is only doing the 10 mile. So let me explain that. When I say it's a 20-mile ride, it means it's 10 miles each way. So it's not a 20-mile ride to Cannery Row, then a 20-mile back. It's a 10-mile ride to Cannery Row. We hang out all day, and it's a 10-mile back. So it's a round trip of 20 miles. The 10-mile ride is the same thing. It starts 5 miles away from Cannery Row. So it's not a combined 10 and 10, it's 5 and 5. So you don't have to train to do the 20-mile ride. You don't have to train to do 20 miles if you're just starting out. You just train to do 10 miles because you're only going 10 miles at a time. And even then, you can rest and you can stop. You can take a water break. Nothing wrong with that. On our rides, we encourage someone, if they feel tired, to stop, let everyone know. Some people will keep going, some will stop with you. That's just the way it is. So there's 2 starting points, 10 miles away from Cannery Row and 5 miles away from Cannery Row. But at the 5 mile point, we all meet up as a group, and then we go together from there. So the next point is I want to explain the 20-mile ride. Okay. The 20-mile ride begins 10 miles away from Cannery Row. So between that 10-mile ride, from mile 1 to mile 5, is very hilly. When we meet the people at the second starting point, it's flat. But up until that point, it's a lot of hills. So I would not recommend anyone with children or anyone with the bike that has no gears. I know sometimes we have people that are just starting out and they have beach cruisers or fixie bikes. I would not recommend doing the 20 mile unless you have gears, and because it's going to be hills from start for that first mile up to the 5 mile. So the 5 miles you're gonna do, the first 5 miles are gonna be hills. It's a lot of fun, but you just gotta know what you're doing to be able to do that. So like I said, we start 10 miles away, and for the first 5 miles it's hills, and then we meet up the second starting point, and then it's flat from that point on. Which now I want to explain the 10-mile ride. For those of you that are only going to do the 10-mile ride, we meet up at it's a hotel parking lot, and the trail passes right through there. So at that point, those of you that are doing the 10-mile ride, which is 5 and 5, you're going to wait there until the first group meets up with you. Once the first group meets up with you from going through those hills, then we go together. And we pass actually through Cannery Row, and we pass it maybe a mile past it to Lover's Point. And that's where actually the end of it is. We meet up there, take pictures there, hang out there. It's a really beautiful view. And then we ride back to Cannery Row. We lock our bikes up all together. There's no bike rack that supports 10, 15, 20 bikes, however many of us go. So what we do is those of us that have locks, we interweave our locks through everybody's bike and just make one huge chain with our bikes and our locks, and that way we know our bikes are safe, and we park them there, and from there we part. We part different ways. We don't go to a restaurant as a group of 20 or 30. Well, some people choose to not eat. Some go to get a snack. Some go to a restaurant. Some just go to the beach. Some just want to go to the shops. So you don't have to stay with the group. What usually happens is the group of 20 or 30 people breaks off into 3 or 4 different groups, and everybody goes and enjoys their time. We set a time of how long we're going to be there. Usually it's 4 to 5 hours that we hang out there, and then we meet back up at a designated time that we figure out then and there while we're locking our bikes up, and we all meet there and unlock our bikes, and we finish the ride. We do have a trailer, so let's say you want to try to do the 20-mile ride, and let's say you do the 20 miles, you do the 10 miles to Cannery Row, but then you're like, you know what, I don't think I can finish the last 10. It's okay to mix and match these trails, these rides, these starting points. You can maybe start at the 10-mile away ride and go into Cannery Row, and then do the 5-mile ride back to the hotel and do a combined of 15 miles. So that's fine to do. Like I said, I have my SUV, I have racks for bikes, so we will have somebody driving my truck for support, and that way if you ever feel tired, you could just rack your bike at that point. Then the next thing I want to talk about is the Strava app. Actually, I should have talked about that earlier. The Strava app, if you don't know already, which you should if you're a soul rider, is the Strava app is the Facebook of cycling. It allows you to post. It allows you to post your miles you do. Every time you do a ride, for instance, if you're my friend on Strava, and if I do a 10-mile ride, everyone that's my friend is going to know I did a 10-mile ride. They're going to see the map that I rode. They're going to be able to comment on it. I'm going to be able to comment back. I can post a picture of my ride. So it's very encouraging to make sure that you're on Strava, because it adds to the richness of the group ride, and we can encourage each other. I make routes on there and trails. I can send them to you. You can do the same thing back and send them back. There's a lot of things we can do on Strava, but the most thing that it does is record your mileage. And it's good to know how many miles you did in a week or in a month or even at the end of the year, to know how many miles you've done. And it's a nice reminder, of a diary of sorts, But the biggest point for me within Strava is that it allows us to make a group. So we have a Soul Riders group that's an invite only. So within the group, we get to see the miles that we are doing separately. And even collectively, it makes it fun. It's like Soul Riders did X amount of miles this week, because maybe I did 10, you did 20, somebody did 5, somebody did 3. And it's nice to see at the end of the week how many miles we collectively did as a group. And it allows you to be a Soul Rider without having to be local. Let's say you live in Los Angeles and you want to be a Soul Rider. Well, guess what? There's 28, 29, 30 of us. And even though you're riding alone, you're not riding alone, because all the members get to see how many miles you've done, pictures you've taken, how fast you're getting, or whatever, and we get to share in that, so you don't feel alone. You feel like, man, if I do 20 miles, nobody even pats me on the back. Sometimes those pat on the backs feel good, but you have 29 other people or 30 or whatever it is in the Soul Group bike club that all sees, regardless of where they're at, regardless if they're even in California or not. And that's why I like Soul Riders as I guess a web or internet social based bike club, because we don't have to necessarily ride together. And even if we are local, sometimes I do rides by myself. I go on a ride by myself here, and I can't always call up Alex or Gabe or Tina or Patty or Sharon, and but yet everyone gets to share each other's rides. So the last thing I want to talk about is couple things, is how to train. This is really important. If you want to do the 20-mile ride, this is how you train for it. Number one, you got to learn your gears. How do you learn your gears? By finding hills or overpasses. If you got to go over an overpass a few times to get used to your gears and how you do it. The trick of the game is when you go up hills, it is not about speed. It is not about speed. Learn your gears. Even if it feels weird, like you're spinning your wheels, but yet you're barely moving, spinning is winning. So I would rather spin, because there's a certain gear that you do where your feet are going super fast, but your bike is barely moving. Learn that. Because I refuse to walk up hills. I don't care if my gear has to be to the point where I'm spinning and it looks like I'm a little mouse, but as long as I make it eventually up that hill. You will creep up a hill, but you're spinning, so the idea is to build your muscles where you spin less and less and less and still get up the hill. But it's okay if you're just starting, but you got to learn how to do it. You got to learn how to set your gears to be in that position while you're riding. So a good way, like I said, is find an overpass and pedal to it, and have your gears normal. And as you're approaching that hill, learn your gears. I think I need to make a whole video on just how to use your gears. I don't want to do it now. It'll lengthen this video too long, but I'm going to do a video on how to use your gears. That way you have a better understanding of what those gears are, especially if you're brand new to Soul Riders or brand new to riding. You want to learn what those gears are. It seems complicated. It's not complicated. It's very easy, and I'm going to make a very comprehensive, understandable video for you guys so you guys can learn. So you want to train. What we are doing as Soul Riders, there's a few of us that we're actually going to Livermore, maybe at least twice between now and then. Because in Livermore there's a nice trail that we do that has hills, and it's a very good training ground for that. So the last thing I want to talk about is motel camping a day off. There's times, one year we actually went camping. There's another time that we stay at hotels. Sometimes the hotels get very expensive. So for us, it's a 2.5 mile drive. So I'll drive at least an hour and a half closer and get a hotel, because when you actually get into Monterey, it gets very expensive. Last year we stayed, I believe, an hour and a half closer. That way we woke up early Saturday morning and we only had 1 more hour to go to get to the ride. That was a lot of fun. So, or there's people that meet the day of. They just leave early, leave here 9 o'clock or wherever it is you're driving from, and you get there, and that's it. So, guys, if there's another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have an email, a group email. That way everyone has all the information. Make sure you join Strava. Make sure you're part of Soul Riders, because I'm going to put in information, like, for instance, the meeting place and even the pinpoint GPS of where we're going to meet at for each starting point. So, yeah, I think that's it, guys. It's 16 minutes. I think I broke it down. If you have any more questions that I didn't answer, please feel free to comment below. This is going to be a YouTube video, so feel free to comment below. Maybe I'll put it on Facebook too, actually. I might upload this on Facebook also, because I want everyone to have the information. If you don't know us and you're watching this, this is an invite to every single person. If you want to ride your bike, or if you've been riding your bike, we want to include you in on this. This is a great way for health, a great way to build friendships and bond. Remember this thing though: if you don't have a bike, I suggest you go buy one. And this is not something that depreciates, because even though a bike depreciates, your health, it's an investment in your health, so it's worth it. You got to spend $200, $300, $400, $500 on a bike. It is not money you are wasting. You are actually investing into a longer life. So I think that's about it. So thank you so much for watching. I hope I didn't say too much, but it's a video, so you can pause and stop. And I'm gonna make a couple more. I want to do one about the gears. Maybe I'll do another one. Actually, I have one on my channel talking about some of the things I carry with me on a ride. So, all right, guys, thank you so much.